Elvis, there have been a lot of rumors about your love life. Did you meet anyone special in Germany?
Not any special one.
The Memphis Mafia meticulously guarded Elvis's secrets for decades, and David Stanley, his stepbrother, bodyguard, assisted.
Any special one. There was a little girl that I was seeing quite often over there that her father was in the Air Force.
Assistant, an enabler, was an integral part of this inner circle. Now 73, Stanley makes a startling claim.
Actually, they only got over there about 2 months before I left. I was seeing her, and she was at the airport when I left.
Elvis deliberately took the drugs that ultimately killed him. He further alleges that Elvis had a preference for teenage.
And there were some pictures made of her, but it was no big romance.
Girls as young as 15, a truth the world and his devoted fans chose to overlook. But Stanley's other revelations delve even deeper, painting a more shocking picture of the king. Elvis Presley was born in the early hours of January 8, 1935, in a tiny two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. He wasn't alone. 35 minutes before him, his twin brother Jesse was born, but Jesse didn't survive, stillborn. That moment cast a lifelong shadow over the Presley family. Elvis's mother, Gladys, never truly recovered, pouring all her love, fear, and hopes into Elvis, treating him as if he were living for two. They couldn't even afford a headstone for Jesse, just an unmarked grave. Elvis would often talk to Jesse when he was alone, believing his twin gave him strength, imbuing him with the energy of two people. Elvis grew up in dire poverty. The family had electricity in their small house but couldn't afford to use it, hauling water from a nearby well. Meals were made from cheap cornmeal. When Elvis was 3, his father, Vernon, was arrested for forging a $4 check and spent 8 months in prison. Gladys was forced to sell their house and move in with relatives. By the time Elvis turned 13, they had lived in at least 6 different homes. He endured teasing at school for his homemade clothes and bringing gravy-covered biscuits for lunch, with the family relying on government handouts and help from neighbors. Yet, within that hard life, music blossomed. Elvis founded in church at age 9, at the First Assembly of God in East Tupelo, where he felt something powerful. The church embraced music with open arms, loud, joyful, and emotional. A preacher named Frank Smith noticed Elvis's fascination and taught him a few guitar chords. Elvis already possessed a how-to book, a rare luxury given their financial struggles. He loved gospel singing, finding peace in it, and continued singing gospel throughout his life, even backstage after concerts. Mississippi in the 1930s was in disarray. Cotton fields were ruined by insects, the flood of 1927 had submerged entire towns, and the Great Depression crushed everyone. But this challenging environment fostered something rare. Poor white and black families ended up living in close proximity, even with segregation. Elvis's family once lived in a mostly black neighborhood, and he eagerly listened to black gospel and blues music whenever he could, tuning into WDIA radio at night where B.B. King played the raw stuff, the very music Elvis would later blend into his own distinctive sound. Most white kids weren't allowed near that music, but Elvis wasn't deterred. In 1948, the Presleys packed all their belongings and moved to Memphis, where Vernon had heard there were jobs for Elvis. It was like moving to a new world. His new school had 1,600 students, an overwhelming change that sent him running home after his first day. However, a year later they moved into Lauderdale Courts, a public housing project that changed everything. It was close to Beale Street, the vibrant heart of the blues. Elvis started attending gospel concerts at Ellis Auditorium, soaking in music all day, every day, from the radio, the streets, and church. Back in Tupelo, on his 11th birthday, Gladys had bought Elvis his first guitar. He had wanted a rifle, or perhaps a bike, but she said no to both, buying him a guitar for $7.90. It changed everything. He taught himself to play. Unable to read music, he simply listened and learned by ear. His style was loud, physical, and full of energy, breaking strings constantly. He mixed gospel, blues, and country into one wild sound. At Humes High School, Elvis looked different from other kids, wearing dress pants and styling his hair like a movie star. People thought he was strange. He was quiet and shy. Then came the talent show in April 1953. Nobody expected much, but when he got on stage and started singing, the crowd went crazy. He sang 2 songs, and they made him do an encore. Overnight, the shy kid became a star in school. After graduation, Elvis worked all kinds of jobs. He was an usher at a theater, fired after a fight with another guy over a girl giving him free candy, worked in a tool shop, built furniture, and even helped a rabbi turn on lights during the Sabbath. His most important job came in 1954 when he drove a delivery truck for Crown Electric. He couldn't even read the radio dial, so he scratched his favorite stations into the dashboard. No matter where he worked, he kept practicing music. He spent nights walking Beale Street, soaking up the blues, meeting B.B. King, and watching musicians in clubs. It was rare for a white kid to be in those places, but Elvis didn't care. He later said, "They'd been singing like that for years, I just goosed it up." And he meant it. He took what he heard in those juke joints and infused it with his own energy. In 1953, Elvis walked into Sun Records and paid to record 2 songs, just a little birthday gift to his mother, but nothing came of it. He returned months later and recorded 2 more songs. Sam Phillips, the studio owner, wrote down his name but didn't say much. On July 5, 1954, in a small studio in Memphis, something strange happened. Elvis Presley, just 19, started messing around with an old blues song. "That's all right, Mama." It wasn't planned, it wasn't polished, but when guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black jumped in, everything clicked. The sound was wild. It wasn't country, it wasn't blues, it was both and neither. Sam Phillips, the man running Sun Studio, heard it and told them to do it again, this time hitting record. What they made that night would soon be called rockabilly, and it changed everything. Just 2 weeks later, on July 19th, the song hit the radio. Dewey Phillips, a DJ in Memphis, played it once, then again, and again. Some say he played it 14 times that night. The phones wouldn't stop ringing. People wanted to know who this voice belonged to. Was he black or white? Dewey asked Elvis which high school he went to, and Elvis said, "Hume's High." That one answer told listeners he was white, but his voice, his rhythm, came straight from black music, and it blew everyone's mind. More shows followed, more noise. People couldn't believe what they were seeing or hearing. Then came the next big step. They brought in DJ Fontana, a drummer from Louisiana Hayride. With him, Elvis's band was complete. They called themselves the Blue Moon Boys, and they played hard, sometimes 3 shows a day. Fans screamed, critics sneered, and some towns didn't want them, but none of that stopped them. On stage, Scotty's guitar danced, Bill's bass slapped, DJ's drums punched. His drums punched, and Elvis himself moved like no one else. Behind the scenes, a man named Colonel Parker was watching. He wasn't really a colonel, but he knew how to sell things fast. By August 1955, he was managing Elvis, not officially yet, but close. By March 1956, it was done. Parker had full control, and he didn't waste time. He made deals, took 25% of Elvis's money, and later 50%. He even made money from people who hated Elvis, selling both "I love Elvis" and "I hate Elvis" buttons. In 1 year alone, Parker's merchandise plan made $22 million. That same year, RCA Victor wanted Elvis. Sam Phillips, who owned his contract, asked for $35,000. That was unheard of. RCA said yes. They paid $35,000 plus $5,000 in back royalties. On November 21, 1955, the deal was done. Elvis was now an RCA artist. He was just 20 years old, but everything was about to get much bigger. 2 months later, on January 10, 1956, Elvis walked into RCA's Studio B in Nashville. It was just 2 days after his 21st birthday. He recorded "Heartbreak Hotel," a song based on a real suicide note that said, "I walk a lonely street." The lyrics were dark, the sound was strange, echoes bounced down a hallway to give it a haunted feel, but it worked. On March 3rd, the song hit the Billboard charts at number 68. By May 5th, it hit number 1, staying there for 7 weeks. By the end of the year, it was the best-selling single of 1956. But not everyone loved it. On June 5, 1956, Elvis performed Hound Dog on the Milton Berle Show. He moved his hips, he shook his legs, America lost its mind. Newspapers attacked him, parents were furious, preachers called him Elvis the Pelvis. TV stations either banned him or demanded cameras only film him from the waist up. But kids loved it. The louder the adults screamed, the more the teenagers bought his records. Even Ed Sullivan, who once called Elvis too inappropriate for family TV, had to give in. On September 9, 1956, Elvis appeared on Sullivan's show. 60 million people watched. Cameras still showed his full body, just not for long. By the third appearance in January 1957, he was filmed only from the waist up. But the damage was done. He was everywhere now, and he was getting rich, very rich. In interviews, Elvis never denied where his music came from. He talked openly about black singers. He said, "They'd been singing this way for years, I just sped it up." He mentioned Arthur, Big Boy Crudup, the man who first sang "That's All Right." He called Fats Domino the real king, and he meant it. Even Little Richard called Elvis an integrator, someone who brought black music to white audiences. RCA couldn't keep up with the demand. In 1 year, they sold 10 million Elvis singles. Heartbreak Hotel went double platinum, Teddy Bear sold 3 million. Hard-Headed Woman sold 1.65 million. Wear My Ring Around Your Neck sold 2.68 million. Even when Elvis went into the army in 1958, the hits kept coming. RCA had saved unreleased songs to keep his name on the charts. It worked. A Big Hunk of Love hit number 1 while he was still in uniform. When Elvis Presley was drafted into the United States Army on March 24, 1958, he was already the biggest star in America. He had millions of fans, sold-out shows, and hit records back-to-back. Then, just like that, it all stopped. Some people thought his career was over. 2 years away from the spotlight could kill any star's momentum. But Elvis made a surprising choice. Instead of taking an easy job entertaining troops, he said no to special treatment. He wanted to be a regular soldier. He joined the 3rd Armored Division and worked just like everyone else. That one move made parents, teachers, and critics see him in a new light. They called him respectful, patriotic, serious. For once, they weren't angry at his hips shaking, they were proud of him. But while his image got cleaned up, something dark crept in. While stationed in Germany, Elvis was introduced to amphetamines. Soldiers used them to stay awake on long night shifts. Elvis liked the way they made him feel energetic, sharp, focused. Then came the barbiturates to help him sleep. That cycle, uppers to wake up, downers to fall asleep, stuck with him for the rest of his life. At the same time, he was grieving. His mother Gladys died just before he left for Germany, and her death shattered him. Drugs helped him cope with the pain. Then came a new chapter in Germany. He met a 14-year-old girl named Priscilla Bolia. She would later become his wife. That relationship started during his service and followed him home. By the time he was discharged on March 5, 1960, he had a cleaner image, a future bride, and a new addiction he couldn't shake. 17 years later, that addiction would kill him. When he died, 14 drugs were found in his system, 10 of them were at dangerous levels. Back home, Hollywood came calling again. Elvis jumped straight into movies. At first, they looked promising, but by 1962, it all became predictable. He played the same kind of guy in almost every film, a charming singer surrounded by pretty women, beach parties, or race cars. Between 1960 and 1968, he made 21 films, sometimes up to 4 per year. Each had 10 to 12 songs, most of them were forgettable. The formula worked at the box office, but it crushed his spirit. He tried to break out, Flaming Star and Wild in the Country were more serious, with fewer songs and more acting, but they didn't make much money. So Colonel Parker dragged him right back into the formula, and it only got worse. Movies like Harum Scarum, Clambake, and Spin Out made even Elvis roll his eyes. After filming Easy Come, Easy Go, he broke down crying. He told his friends, "It's come to this, I'm a goddamn singing bellbull." The scripts were so bad one critic said he was always playing the same guy, just in a different uniform, sometimes an army vet, sometimes a race car driver, sometimes a beach bum, but always the same Elvis. Still, the money never stopped. Between 1956 and 1969, his movies made about $175 million. That's over $1.4 billion today. Most films cost just $2.5 million to make, but they brought in double, or even triple that. Blue Hawaii made $4.2 million. Viva Las Vegas made $4.7 million. Even the cheap, silly ones made profits. Tickle Me cost just $1.8 million and still pulled in $3 million. Soundtrack sales went down, but the films kept the cash flowing. In Hollywood, executives didn't even call them movies anymore, they called them cash registers. They didn't care about the reviews. They cared that every Elvis film made at least $750,000 in foreign markets like Japan and Germany, no matter how bad it was. But one film changed everything. In the summer of 1963, while shooting Viva Las Vegas, Elvis met Ann-Margret. She wasn't just another co-star, she matched him in energy, talent, and charisma. Sparks flew immediately. Their chemistry lit up the screen and carried into real life. Elvis fell hard. He gave her a pink Cadillac, matching gold bracelets, and even started calling her his female twin. But there was a problem. Back in Germany, Priscilla was waiting. Priscilla, who had been waiting in Germany, was furious when news of the affair reached the papers. She called Graceland and presented Elvis with an ultimatum, her or Ann-Margret. He chose Priscilla, yet he never truly let Ann-Margret go, sending her guitar-shaped flower arrangements before every Vegas show until his death, a detail she herself confirmed decades later. By 1969, the movie formula had run its course, and Elvis wanted out. His last movie, Change of Habit, released on November 10, 1969, marked a significant departure. In it, he played a doctor assisting people in a poor New York neighborhood, with his love interest, a nun, portrayed by Mary Tyler Moore. The story bravely tackled themes of racism, poverty, mental health, and even church reform. While not perfect, some scenes, like one involving rage therapy on an autistic child, haven't aged well. It demonstrated Elvis's desire to be taken seriously as an actor again. The film had a higher budget of $3.2 million and a much more serious tone. Critics weren't entirely kind, with one calling it well-intentioned but naive. The ending offered no clear closure, leaving it ambiguous whether the nun would leave her vows for Elvis or not. No one knew. But something had clearly changed. Change of Habit was his final film, and in hindsight, it was the only one that truly attempted to convey something real. Elvis married Priscilla on May 1, 1967, in Las Vegas. The ceremony lasted a mere 8 minutes, concluding by 9 a.m. It was meticulously arranged by Colonel Tom Parker to generate headlines, yet only 14 guests were invited. After the vows, they held a press conference and a $10,000 champagne breakfast for approximately 100 people. Notably, some of Elvis's closest friends, like Red West, were not invited, causing serious tension behind the scenes. Immediately following the celebration, Elvis and Priscilla flew to Palm Springs for a short honeymoon, then spent 3 quiet weeks at a ranch near the Mississippi border. Elvis later expressed his enjoyment of playing house there, a rare moment of calm in their lives. However, their private life was far from peaceful. In her 1985 book, Elvis and Me, Priscilla revealed the extent of Elvis's control over her, even when she was still a teenager. He told a friend that she was young enough to train however he wanted. He dictated her clothes, her hair, and her makeup, leading one member of his entourage to comment that she looked Like a doll, he dressed up. Elvis also gave her pills without always disclosing what they were. She wrote about being knocked out for 2 days by sleeping tablets, and also receiving amphetamines when she was tired at school. They even tried LSD together, which frightened her. Whenever she confronted him about other women, he would turn it around on her, threatening to send her back to Memphis, then changing his mind once she was crying, a form of emotional warfare. On February 1, 1968, Priscilla gave birth to Lisa Marie Presley, exactly 9 months after the wedding, almost to the day. At first, Elvis was nervous about becoming a father. When Priscilla was 7 months pregnant, he even asked for a trial separation. But once Lisa was born, he changed. He named his private jet after her, and traveled in it constantly during his tours. Still, things didn't last. Elvis and Priscilla separated in 1972. Lisa Marie was only 4 and lived with her mother in Los Angeles but often stayed at Graceland on school breaks. She was at Graceland the night her father died, August 16, 1977, when she was just 9 years old. That moment haunted her forever. When Elvis died, Lisa became an heir to his estate alongside her grandfather Vernon and great-grandmother Minnie Mae, becoming the sole heir after their deaths. The marriage had been falling apart for years. Priscilla discovered Elvis's cheating in the worst way. In 2025, during a panel in Orlando, she recounted discovering letters from women thanking Elvis for private invitations. One letter read, "Charlie Hodge asked me to come up and I'm so glad you greeted me." When she confronted Elvis, he denied everything and made her feel guilty for even asking. Eventually, she stopped trying, stating, "You didn't have your own life, you lived his." By the early 1970s, she had started an affair with her karate instructor, Mike Stone. In a 2017 interview, she stated that the cheating on both sides ended the marriage. "He wasn't faithful, I just didn't want to share him." Still, she said she never stopped loving him. She left because she had to find herself. Their divorce was finalized in October 1973. At first, she agreed to just $100,000 in small monthly payments, but her new lawyers pushed for more. In the end, she received $725,000, ongoing support, 5% of Elvis's publishing companies, and half the money from selling their Beverly Hills home. She didn't stop there. That same year, Priscilla opened a boutique in Los Angeles called Biss & Bow, with clients including Cher, Barbra Streisand, and Diana Ross. After Elvis died in 1977, Priscilla became the executive of his estate. It was a disaster. Graceland cost $500,000 a year just to maintain, and Lisa's inheritance had dropped to only $1 million. Priscilla made a bold decision. She turned Graceland into a public museum. It opened on June 7, 1982. The gamble worked. It paid back its costs in just 4 weeks. Under Priscilla's leadership, the estate grew into a $100 million empire. In the middle of all this, Elvis made one of the biggest comebacks in music history. On December 3, 1968, NBC aired Singer Presents Elvis. It was supposed to be a Christmas special, but the director, Steve Binder, had a different idea. He wanted it to feel raw and exciting. Elvis agreed. He filmed it in June, doing both solo stand-up and sit-down sessions with fans. The highlight was Elvis in black leather, a look that became legendary. The final song, "If I Can Dream," was written just for him. Parker didn't want it, but Elvis insisted. When the show aired, it pulled in 42% of the TV audience. It was the top-rated show of the season. Everyone realized Elvis was back. Then came Vegas. On July 31, 1969, Elvis performed at the brand new International Hotel in Las Vegas. The room held 2,000 people, and every seat was full. He did 57 shows in 4 weeks, sometimes 2 per night. Fans lined up by the hundreds, some flew in from Europe just to see him. Reviews were glowing. He kept coming back, doing 636 sold-out shows over 7 years. Priscilla called the opening night magical. A friend said Elvis looked like a tiger unleashed. Vegas became his new kingdom. For this new era, Elvis needed a band. He asked guitarist James Burton to build one. That's how the TCB band started. It stood for Taking Care of Business, with a lightning bolt. Elvis put that logo on everything: his jet, his jewelry, his guns. The band included James Burton, Jerry Scheff, Ronnie Tutt, Larry Mahabharak, and John Wilkinson. Backing singers like the Sweet Inspirations and the Imperials joined later. Elvis even had special TCB necklaces made for his inner circle. His Vegas shows became over-the-top spectacles. He wore jumpsuits with rhinestones, he moved like a martial artist, and he gave away scarves mid-show. It was Elvis at full power. And through it all, Elvis never gave up on gospel. He won his first Grammy for How Great Thou Art in 1967, a mix of slow hymns and upbeat spirituals. Then, in 1972, he released He Touched Me and won another Grammy. He recorded it with the Imperials and other top gospel voices. The album went gold in 1992 and platinum in 1999. Elvis met Ginger Alden in November 1976. She was just 20. He was 41. Within 2 months, he proposed with a massive diamond ring that cost around $70,000. It should have been a dream, but it wasn't. One night, Ginger woke up to a loud bang. Elvis was standing at the foot of the bed with a .357 Magnum in his hand. There was a hole in the wall above her head. He said he fired because she didn't bring him yogurt. Ginger was in shock, but she stayed. That wasn't the only time. Elvis once got so angry at a running toilet that he shot it to pieces with what Ginger said looked like a machine gun. On a trip to Hawaii, he slapped her during a fight about how much juice he drank. He told her, "No one ever walks out on me when I'm talking." From the beginning, he controlled her. When she asked to ride in his Ferrari, he said, "I'll decide." Then he gave her a gold bracelet that said Elvis, in diamonds. He told her, "Now everyone will know you belong to me." When she hesitated to break up with another man, Elvis threw a Gatorade bottle against the wall. His friends didn't like her. They thought she didn't care. Some said she only stayed around because her mother wanted gifts, fur coats, a new car. Elvis's inner circle never trusted her. By then, Elvis was also falling apart inside. Dr. George Nicopolos, his personal doctor, had been feeding him pills for years. In just 8 months of 1977, Elvis was prescribed over 10,000 doses of drugs, uppers, downers, sleeping pills, painkillers, and hormones. The doctor later said he gave him placebos too, but it didn't matter. Elvis took what he called attacks, 3 big drug hits each day, each one with powerful pills like Valium, Demerol, Seconal, and Quaaludes. His stepbrother David Stanley said Elvis would take his first attack around 2 a.m., then eat something and sometimes fall asleep mid-bite, even choking on his food. That routine had started long ago, when he was given pills to stay awake during Army duty. By now, Elvis's body had changed. He was bloated, sluggish, barely able to move. But his clothes still dazzled. His famous jumpsuits had been created when he was still fit, inspired by karate uniforms and high collars. But as he gained weight, the suits were redesigned to cover his size. The rhinestones and capes distracted the eye. It was showbiz camouflage. They were also influenced by Liberace, whom Elvis had met in Vegas years earlier. Still, there were moments of brilliance. In 1973, Elvis made history with Aloha from Hawaii. It was the first concert beamed around the world by satellite. Over 1 billion people watched, but the truth was it only aired live in 6 countries. Most of the world got it later, and only 21 countries saw it at all. Still, it was a massive success. NBC's United States broadcast became its top-rated show of the year. But that show also marked the beginning of his final chapter. Elvis kept performing, over 500 shows, but his health was slipping fast. On June 26, 1977, he performed for the last time in Indianapolis. The crowd was 18,000 strong, but Elvis was barely holding it together. He stumbled through lyrics, he seemed confused, asking what day it was. He rambled about Polish folk songs, but he also sang with deep emotion, songs like, "You gave me a mountain." His final words to the crowd were, "We'll meet you again, God bless, adios." Less than 2 months later, he was dead. On August 16, 1977, Elvis was preparing for another tour. Around 7 a.m., he went to the bathroom to rest before his flight. Ginger found him at 2:30 p.m., face down on the bathroom floor. He was cold blue, not breathing. Paramedics rushed him to Baptist Memorial. Dr. Nick rode in the ambulance, but it was too late. Elvis was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. Later, the toxicology report shocked the world. 14 different drugs were found in his body. 10 were at dangerous levels. His codeine level was 10 times the safe amount. He had methaqualone, Valium, morphine, and more. But at the press conference, the official word was heart failure. Dr. Francisco insisted drugs weren't a factor, but the other doctors disagreed. They believed drugs killed him. David Stanley first met Elvis Presley when he was just 4 years old. His mother married Elvis's father Vernon Presley in 1960. That marriage brought David and his 2 brothers, Ricky and Billy, into the Presley home at Graceland. From that point on, David lived there for the next 17 years. For him, Elvis wasn't just a stepbrother. He became more like a father figure. Elvis had a strong personality and complete financial control over the household. David remembers how Elvis would pat him on the back, and in that moment everything felt okay. But living in Elvis's world wasn't simple. The house revolved around whatever Elvis was into at the time: military history, karate, Cadillacs, whatever he liked, the whole house had to like too. As David got older, he became more involved in Elvis's world. He joined the group that fans called the Memphis Mafia. This was Elvis's inner circle, the people who went everywhere with him, protected him, and handled his daily life. David worked as a bodyguard, ran errands, kept the schedule, and watched over Elvis on tour. But being that close came with a cost. He saw things others didn't, like Elvis's constant struggle with insomnia or how he relied on pills just to get through the day. Later, David said that the Memphis Mafia made things worse. He believed they were too loyal, too afraid to say no, and that this only helped Elvis spiral further down. They gave him what he wanted, even when it was killing him. In 2022, David said something that shocked almost everyone. In a documentary called Elvis's Women, he claimed Elvis didn't just die, he took his own life. David said Elvis was drowning in guilt over his relationships with underage girls. He believed Elvis knew what he was doing and made a choice. David's exact words were, "He premeditated taking the medications that killed him." He also said Elvis had a taste for very young girls, sometimes just 15 or 16 years old, and that it was a miracle he wasn't busted. One of the most disturbing examples was Elvis's relationship with Priscilla. He met her when she was 14. Priscilla herself has openly discussed this complex dynamic. In a 1985 interview with People magazine, she stated that Elvis tried to control everything about her: her hair, her clothes, even her thoughts. She felt he molded her into exactly what he wanted, and by the time they married, she had lived under his pervasive influence for years. Critics today view that relationship differently, often suggesting that if it had occurred now, Elvis might have faced legal charges. David Stanley stated it plainly: Elvis got away with things because he was rich, famous, and powerful. However, not everyone has taken kindly to David's claims. After his documentary aired, there was significant backlash, and fans were furious. Many accused David of using Elvis's name to sell books and tickets, with some even calling him a traitor. In June 2023, David posted an apology on Instagram, saying, "I am sorry for the derogatory comments, there is no excuse." But just before that, he had posted on Facebook claiming he never made those comments, a contradiction that only angered people further. The inconsistency raised questions about his credibility. Was he telling the truth, or just trying to sell something? This wasn't the first time David had changed his story. Over the years, he has written several books about Elvis. One book paints Elvis as a tragic hero, another describes him as out of control, Then he says Elvis was like a god, then he says Elvis was a broken man. In 2024, he published My Brother Elvis, The Final Years, which claimed to tell the unfiltered truth about Elvis's death. But fans noticed something. They had heard it all before. Some parts of the book were nearly identical to things David had said in the 1980s. For a lot of people, that was the final straw. They started to believe David wasn't chasing truth, he was chasing money.